Okay. So, a couple items. First, when you double check things in plan book, I've got a link for this. If you go to our class website and you dig through Google Drive, you'll see this exact folder. There's two different semester review and keys in there. One of them is old. If you need extra practice, this would be a good way to practice. Some of these were turned into the review questions for the one we've done for the past couple of years, but it's there if you need it. If you just feel the need to do more, because some kids are just like that. Otherwise, here we go. Now, I had said, do not do anything remotely related to my class over break, and I hope you took that seriously. With that being on the table, has anyone even touched the review yet? Good job. I didn't want you to. Okay? Yo!
Is this like, is the semester review going to look like the test? Is it like going to look like the test? Or is it going to be...
The amount of time and effort that it takes to make a quality multiple choice is not what I'm willing to put in the next 48 hours. So, no. There will be similar questions, but they will not be multiple choice. It'll be just like your regular quizzes, free response. Because I will be putting it also on Classroom. So if you're not here, you can still take care of it whenever. And I sure as heck am not going to put the more secure in-class final out there into the ether, because that just destroys it. All right, anyway. These do all follow in order. So starting way back in the olden days, back in September, a piece of rope 20 feet long is cut from a longer piece that is at least tells me my inequality, greater than or equal to 32 feet. The remainder is cut into 4 pieces of equal length. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, and this big chunk here, 5. Four pieces of equal length and 20 feet. If those are all equal length, and I have no idea what they are, what to be they? Don't just give me a number. Math. What do I put for I have no idea what this is, but they're all the same? Variables. You know, the letter things that go with the number things. I have 4 equal length pieces plus a 20 length piece, and altogether it's going to be at least 32 feet altogether. Describe the length of the pieces. So I subtract, divide. But you got to pay attention to the wording on them. Greater than or equal to 3. So if you come along and see E, hey, it's got a 3 in it. Bam, and move on to the next one. Gotcha. At least 3 feet long. You got to watch your wording. Got to watch your rounding. Watch whether you say it equals a value versus it's approximately a value. Those kind of things matter. Equation in point-slope form passes through 2 points. Stage 1, do we remember slope formula? If you didn't hear Mighty Mouse said y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I believe there's a song. I will not sing it. You can label these. Which one is 2 and which one is 1 is arbitrary. Don't really matter. I'm going to say 6 minus 8 over 23 minus 2, negative 2 over 21. So right out the gate, oh, they all got a negative 2 over 21. Oh, no. That's got 21 over 2. It's almost like those options are there because kids screw up those a lot. They'll accidentally put x's over y's. It says point-slope form. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So, you get to choose which point. So I can either use 2 and 8, or I can use 23 and 6. But the form is y minus y1, x minus x1. Bass-Ackwards land, which we've seen a couple of times with other types of functions. So, what happens if you don't remember that? You make this little goof. You just swapped your signs. It's wrong. You didn't read the problem, and you went all the way to slope-intercept form. You're wrong. There you go. You see how a true multiple choice test is supposed to look? You've all taken that test where it's like, who was the 23rd president of the United States? There's only 4 options. One of them is the name of the teacher of the class, and the other is Kermit the Frog. That's not a test. That does not reflect anything in terms of knowledge. That, if I swap my x's and y's, I'll get this incorrect answer. If I forget that it's minus y1 and minus x1, I'll get the incorrect answer. If I didn't read the problem and I got everything, I did all the math right, but I got to slope-intercept form, you'll get the answer wrong. This is how a real multiple choice test is made. So usually, y'all are lucking out. We're gonna take a little chill. But this is the final that Algebra 2 has used across the board for the last 5 years. The type of one, there's like 9 different versions of it. This is how an ACT is done as well. This is how the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, MCA, was done, because I was one of the ones that wrote questions for it. This is how Smarter Balance was originally generated and then turned into a free response format from that. Y'all took Smarter Balance, right? Back in 8th grade? Junior, seniors have now taken it. No. Junior, you'll take it this spring. That's how a real test is supposed to be. Got a whole bunch of graphs. Which one is this? Do y'all remember being able to graph using intercepts? Now you can choose. Some of you are going to say, I don't like this. And then divide. Because that's our jam. Do it! If that's your jam. Okay, which one of these starts at a -6? That guy and that guy. You notice they both have the same ratio for a slope. The one's positive, one's negative. Because what happens if you're that kid and you forget that negative drops when you move the 3x over? So correct answer, almost, because you missed a negative. If you miss a negative, you will get one of the options. So it's supposed to be a positive slope, so it's going to be E. The other way to do this, which is a lot quicker, remember graphing by intercepts? If I put a 0 in for y, I'll get the x-intercept. If I put a 0 in for x, I'll get a y-intercept. So you just look at which one hits -6 and +4. Ta-da! It's a lot quicker. Equation in standard form. Ahem. What does standard form look like? No, that's slope-intercept form. And everyone thinks that because it's the one we use the most. There we go. AX plus BY equals C. Just like standard form for a quadratic was AX squared BX plus C equals 0. Standard form of a thing means all the junk over here equals constant. Variables here, constants there. With integer coefficients of a line that passes through here and has a slope of this. Problem is I can't start in that form. So I'm going to start with that y minus y1 is m times x minus x1. I'm going to start in point slope form because they gave me a point and a slope. Make sense? So y is 7 minus 7, cool. X is -6. And m is 2/5. Now you just got to turn it into that. Go ahead and turn it into that. Remember, your final, yours. It's not going to be the traditional final, and it will be 100% open everything. And it will reflect this review because this review covers everything we did. So putting some notes on here to yourself would be a good idea. Put next to these problems what standard form is. Don't just write this. Next to it, write standard form for lines. So you remember that's what it is. Maybe next to these problems you say, read the instructions, what form do they want? So we're going to disturb it. Let's add the opposite, so that's +6, 12/5. I'm going to add 7, which is really 35/5. Move the x to the other side. So which one is it? Nope. Why? Yeah. Reading the problem explains the problem. With integer coefficients, fractions are rational numbers, not integers. Integers means no fractions or decimals allowed. So I have to take this whole thing, multiply it by 5. Getting negative 2x plus 5y is 47. Reading the problem explains the problem, and it is not unreasonable that a problem on a cumulative final like this that covers everything, well, I mean, final, right? We're going to split it up over like 3, maybe 4 days. I'm not sure how long it'll take you. It's not uncommon for a problem to look like this because it incorporates multiple things we did. You have to know, in one problem, you have to know what standard form is. You have to be able to start in either point-slope form or slope-intercept form, change them to that form, remember what an integer is, and then alter the equation to make integers. That's a lot of things piled into one. Okay. What type of graph is this? It's a big fat V. Please tell me you have your stuff from the semester. Absolute value. Having quizzes 1 through 14 would be a good idea right now. Or 1 through 13 because you just took 14 yesterday. This is an absolute value. So its form is going to look like that. Which automatically gets rid of those two. Is it a happy V or sad V? It has a vertical reflection to it, right? So that one's out because it has a positive A value. The other two both have an A value of 1/5, negative. Let's confirm that. Down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that is the slope on the right-hand side is negative 1/5. That's my compression. The question is, what's that point? Okay. So that means it went right 6, it went up 7. How do I put that in there in terms of translations? Because this is grouped in with x, that's bass-ackwards land. This is not grouped with any variable, so it's regular. HK is a vertex of both absolute value and quadratics. Did it shade up or down? It shaded up. So the y's should be greater than. The line was solid, so it's or equal to. If you focus on all of the numbers, you might think option D. But then you notice that they shaded. Okay. So I'd recommend having that translation form written down. In fact, the Holy Grail, remember this one? Where that f of x is whatever the function is. In this case, it was absolute value. Might be quadratic, might be cubic, quartic, might be square root, third root, fifth root. Might be logarithm, might be exponential. Whatever it is.
On this question, couldn't you already know it's A? Like not even doing any of the other stuff?
Explain.
Because, well, there's less than, greater than, but then it's parentheses and squared, so it can't take either of them. And it's equal, so we already know it's shaded up, so it's greater than.
Jack, you just said all the stuff that we did. Like, if you know that stuff, great. In terms of showing your work for that, say this was the actual final multiple choice where you get 2 points for the work, 1 point for the work, 2 for the answer. What I would say is 6, 7, shaded up, absolute value. If you just had those 3 things on there, I'd be like, okay, they know what they're doing. Well, you'd have to have something there, like the thought process that you just explained is this. So just scribble those few things out and then choose A. That works too. Do we remember the light side and the dark side? Absolute value exists in 2 places because the distance from 0. The distance from 0 means if it's 5 units away, it's either at 5 or -5. So I have to account for both of those options. Before I go doing that, what should I take care of first? So we have the light side, which says this thing is actually here. I'll subtract 4w, add 9, divide. Cool. Or we can come to the dark side where they have cookies. Do you remember what we change on the dark side for its other possibility? Not just the sign, it's the sign of that entire side. So I now need to negate the whole thing. So it'll be 4w minus 5 is negative 6w plus 9. And then solve it. Add 6w, add 5, divide, reduce. 2 options or 2 answers. Bonus level. You got plenty of room in there to work. Solve green. Who got that for an answer? Okay, that's good. What did you get?
I got 29.51, like 21.51, whatever, and then 19.
Also incorrect. Someone tell me what absolute value is again?
How far away from 0?
Uh-huh. Ah, it's a trap. Or sorry, -5/3. As soon as you divide by that -3, you just said this thing is -5/3 away from 0. That's not possible. No solution. It's not possible to have a negative distance. That would be a handy thing to write down. Now, that doesn't mean your answer can't be negative. The variable itself might be negative, but the distance can't be negative. On to systems. This is old school. This is back in Algebra half, just like the rest of those. Baseball team, $20 a bat, $12 per glove. Those have got to be like wiffle ball. God, what does actual glove cost now? It's like 130 or something. It's nuts. Anyway, $20 a bat, 12 a glove, spent a total of $10.40. This year, the prices went up to 25 a bat, 16 a glove. They spent $13.50 for the same amount of equipment. That's telling you that these will have equivalent X and Y. They're going to have the same answers. How many bats and gloves did they purchase? Make a note to yourself that when you go to the question at the end, that determines your variables. They're asking how many of this and this do I have? So bats and gloves. if you still have your packets from way back, chapter 1 and 2, when we talked about linear forms of an equation, there was one in which we talked about slope-intercept, standard, and point slope. They each had a different relevance in word problems. That look familiar? Rate x plus start. Take a look at the two sentences in here. Oh, we're going to include that. Did either of those give me a starting amount? They had to pay this much. And then we added to it based on thing. Like, you're going to spend 20 bucks on pizza, and then it's $5 for every add-on. Did they give me something like that, where you are going to spend this, and then we're going to add something per whatever? Doesn't sound right. Okay. What about that? Oh, yeah, they gave me two totals. So that's my two equations. In the first one, they said 20 bucks per bat and $12 per glove, and they gave me a total of $10.40. Second one, 25 per bat, 16 per glove, total of $13.50. And just so we can finish off our word train here, this will be y minus, usually output is rate x minus input. So that one will usually be in terms of time. They'll say, in this year, there were this many chocolate-covered chalupas. If they make 40 more every year, they gave you a rate, an input, meaning the year, and output, meaning what happened in the year. So those are your three linear equations in terms of word problems. Now that I have my equations, all we got to do is solve. You tell me. What do you mean take out G?
Like multiply the top one by 5 to get 100D or something, and then multiply the bottom one by 4 to also get 100.
All right, big kid words. What is Jack describing? Elimination. Remember substitution elimination? Okay. If I take this top equation and multiply it by, I don't know, a -5, getting negative 100b minus 60g is a negative 5200. and multiply this one by 4, getting a positive 100b, a positive 64g, and 5,200 plus another 100, 5,300? Check my mental math. 54? Really? 52 plus another 200. Yep. And that's why we ask for the check. If I get those variables to match up like this, one of them will zero out. We have eliminated a variable. Now I can solve. Don't just get G as number and quit. It asked how many gloves and bats I need to finish it off. So if I know that G is 50, I'm going to come back to either one of these, and it doesn't matter. And solve for B. So what's that? 2 is 100, 600. Divide 22. Make sure you answer the question too. Don't just leave it because what happens if you chose X and Y instead of B and G? Which one is which might be a little ambiguous. Say 22 bats and 50 gloves. If you know anyone who actually plays baseball, softball, how laughable is $12 or $16 for a glove? Unless you are literally buying your friend lunch and then stealing their glove. Like a brand new one? Oh man, I couldn't even imagine right now. Oh. Well, I'll be damned. I suppose it depends whether you get it at Walmart or a thrift store or versus heading to Shields or something like that and paying their ridiculous markup because, look, I shop at Shields. Yeah. Okay. Mine says Under Armour on it. 3 variable systems. If you remember the trick to these, you eliminate a variable 2 ways. You're a lion stalking the herd. You go after the weak and the sick. You say, that one looks really easy to get out of there. So I'm going to do that. When you do it 2 ways, you have created a 2 variable system, which we know how to solve. I've been doing it for a few years. Once we solve for 2 variables, we go back and solve for the eliminated variable. So out of all that stuff, who looks really easy to eliminate 2 different ways? You're looking for anything with a coefficient of 1 or -1 if you can help it. Doesn't always work out that way. Okay? X or Z both have a coefficient of 1. Y'all have a preference? Yeah, I know your preference. You said it 3 times. What about everyone else? Anyone care? No? All right. Then I'm going to choose Z just to spite Jack. So I'm going to take this one times a negative 7. Oh, y'all remember this? Labeling them. So you know what is what when you're doing the problem. It also helps me to decipher your work. Helps you to go back and check your steps. So I'm going to say negative 7 by equation 1, which is negative 14x plus 21y minus 7z is 21. And equation 2. There is an x minus 5y plus 7z, negative 11. Smash it all together, get a negative 13x plus 16y is 10. Cool, I eliminated a variable. Don't go getting rid of x now. I got rid of z one time. So get rid of z another time. That's too light. I can't see that. So now, I'm going to use that one instead. I'm still going to use this because it's a coefficient of 1. I'm going to switch it to 6. 6 times equation 1. 12x minus 18y, 6z is negative 18. And equation 3. Negative 10x, 4y, minus 6z is 28. Get 2x minus 16, no, minus, come on you. 2x minus 14y is 10. There we go. If I have done these two, I'll show you. This is kind of how I do my problems. Is I'll do these two side by side so that I can show this equation and this equation. Hey, along the way, it is okay to say I'm going to make this easier. Why would I have done that along the way? See how x is just a little easier to take care of now? Now it has a coefficient of 1 instead of 2. I'm going to take this by 13. Getting 13x minus 91y, ew, is 65. But that's a negative 75y is 75. Y is negative 1. If I now know what y is, I can plug it in. If I now know what x and y are, I'm going to come all the way back to the beginning. Say 2 by thing minus 3 by thing plus z is negative 3. I know y is a negative 1. I know x is a negative 2. Now I'm on down the races. Running out of colors here. Oh, hey, turd. There you go. Negative 4 plus 3 plus z is negative 3. Negative 1 plus z is negative 3. Z is negative 2. Make sure to write it three-dimensional coordinate. These are usually in alphabetical order. Negative 2, negative 1, negative 2. Assuming we didn't goof, what should I be able to do with that now? If it's true. How? Where? All three of them. Remember, this is the intersection between three-dimensional planes. You're saying an x and y axis along this z rotation. X and y axis along this z rotation. This is the one magical spot where three universes are intersecting. So it should be the one place where there happens to be three infinity stones in New York at the same time. Okay, on your paper being in black and white. But can you still tell what's going on? The darkest region is the region that's actually shaded. Okay? Now, this is how I had to do it for a multiple choice test. On yours, it will be more like graph the solution. So do you remember how to graph these? Let's just get Sketchtown here. This one. Where's the vertex? Negative 2, negative 4, bass-ackwards land, not bass-ackwards land. So back 2, down 4. Will this absolute value go up or down? Positive value means it'll go up. More explicitly, that value gives me my slope on the right side. Up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1. And then you mirror it across an axis of symmetry. Solid line or dotted? Right? More ink here, more ink there. And it says y is less than or equal to the v. You remember doing this? Just those little arrows to say I'm going to shade outside. Okay. And then, regular old line, y-intercept of negative 1. Slope is down 2, right 3. Or up 2, left 3. It is also a solid line. And it says y is greater than or equal to the line. So we're going to shade this way. So the place where all of them are shading, where all those arrows are headed, right there. Cool? Almost. That's not all of it, is it? Remember, this is shading outside the V. This is shading above the line. This is going to keep going up here forever. Both of those sections. So if I was looking at these, E. No, E is a parabola. D. There you go. Factor completely. Anyone heading up to pre-calc? You better be able to quadratic. If you can't quadratic, just nope. You have to know how quadratics work because you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. All right, we review all of quadratics and complex numbers in the first 3 days of class, including sets and discrete math that we've seen so far. Like, it is expected you know it beforehand. So, what's the first stop on any factor train? What do these two have in common? Is it only 2? And now I'm doubting myself. I'm questioning my existence. It is only 2. This is not yet factored completely. What's this called? Starts with a D, ends with a difference of squares. Difference of squares. Dang, you guys are good. Okay. The difference of squares says it's going to be a plus-minus combo. Notice that there isn't a middle term. If there's no middle term, that means I had to have multiplied together conjugates to get rid of it. When you guys got to bail?
I was trying to decide if it was supposed to be a 1 or 1 15 minutes.
Hold on. Let's check campus because you guys are. It says 1:15 for both of you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right.
Like how you check it. Half one.
So, yes, it is the square root of this thing and the square root of this thing. You got an 8x here. You got a 9 here. But the plus-minus combo is what allows it to get past not having a middle term. Now, you can do this by AC method, too. If you really wanted to, it would just suck. Because that's 64x squared plus 0x minus 81. Remember this? Oh, that's a big number. I like big consonants. I can't not lie. It's just that, yeah, that would suck. Also pay attention to the directions on these if they say to factor versus they say to solve. Solve by factoring. So, step 1 on the train. Every single thing up here can be divided by, I'm going to go by -2 so that I keep the positive coefficient out front. It's just easier. Because 0 divided by -2 is still 0. Oh, absolutely randomly. Congratulations. Technically, as of right now, none of you have to pass the final, like required to pass the final by school board policy to get the credit. So, yay. I don't have to jump through that loophole because I wasn't gonna. It's so dumb. Like, if you're passing, but you've been gone a lot, regardless of being quarantined, whether you had to be gone because of mandatory quarantine, school events, or just your own personal mental health, it shouldn't matter. If you're passing the class, you're passing the class. I think that's a really dumb rule. But anyway. AC method says you take A times C, get negative 30. So what multiplies together to make negative 30, but add together to make B? Negative 6, positive 5. Negative 6, positive 5. So I'll split this. AC method is also called factoring by grouping. What I mean by factoring by grouping, you remember from way back when, oh, that's right, you were the class where some of you were just told to guess and check these back in Algebra 1. Just to throw two binomials up there and start trying numbers until it worked. Ew. No, if I only got three things up here, you have all been in that situation where you're with a couple of friends who are actually a couple, and you just the third wheel. It's just awkward. But if you bring along a friend, all right, you two go over there and be gross. Tell your parents they're going to be grandparents at the ripe age of 38. Good job. Me and this other one, on the other hand, we're going to compare our islands on Animal Crossing. Okay? Factoring by grouping means I need to have at least 4 items so that I can pair them up. Or triple them up. I can have 2 and then 3 once we get these bigger. You say, these two, what do they have in common? I'm going to take a 2K out. What do these two got in common? They got a 5. And I say, oh, fancy that. They both have a K minus 3. So factoring is the opposite of distribution. Well, technically factoring is the distribution principle, but if I take that K minus 3 out, I'm left with a 2K plus 5. Cool, I factored it, I'm done. Keep going. Set them both equal to 0. K minus 3 is 0. And 2K plus 5 is 0. Make sure you finish it all the way off. If either of these end up being an irreducible fraction, or a fraction that cannot be turned into a terminating decimal, leave it as a fraction. For example, negative 5 halves. If you put negative 2.5, I'll take it. I'm not happy, but I'll take it. But if that's negative 5 thirds, and you say negative 1.67, okay, now we got a problem. Because you actually removed part of your answer. Notice this one just says as a complex number, it doesn't say how. You get the choice. You can complete the square or quadratic formula. I don't care. If you're heading up to pre-calc, you better know how to complete the square. The section that they just took a quiz on today, you have to complete the square multiple times in a single problem. That's why we've been doing it for years. Not just for our own health and benefit. Okay, there's a purpose to it. Option A, which most of you are going to go with, is A equals 2, B is -3, C is 7. X is -b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you do this, put a little note next to it. Remember, you don't divide by that 2a until the very end. I'll see a lot of kids who try to take whatever this number is and divide it or reduce it with 2a. I'd also recommend parentheses, setting it up like this. And then plugging in numbers. -3, -3, 2, 2, 7. So I got x is +3 plus minus square root of. Well, that's 8 by 7 is 56. 9 minus 56 is a -47. Would that be like I? No, it would be I. Remember, before you came to Algebra 2, you would have said, not possible. Done. But then we discovered what I is. The square root of -1 is I. So this becomes 3/4 plus or minus square root of 47 over 4i. Option B, complete the square. Stage 1, eliminate the Canadians. Divide by a. So I'll call that x squared minus 3/2 x minus 7 plus 7/2 is 0. Stage 2, like a middle school dance. Variables over here, constants over there. Boys over here, girls over there. I'll turn that into x squared minus 3/2 x is -7/2. I'll complete the square by adding b over 2 squared to both sides. B, right now, over 2 squared. Dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2. So this is -3/4 squared. So I'm going to add 9/16 to both sides. Now I can write it as a perfect square binomial. It's always x plus b over 2, half of this term, squared. Grab a calculator or get like terms, I don't care. Solve by square roots. Get x by its lonesome. Either way is viable. Do either one, I don't care. I'm going to keep yakking. It's on YouTube. If you guys need to go, go. Oh, also remember, separate your real friends from your imaginary friends. Even though we can write that like this, get used to writing it this way because it matters later. You might have some crotchety math professor in college who says you do it that way or die. Don't be that guy.
How do you get the x minus 3/4?
It's always of the form x plus b over 2. So half of negative 3/2. Yep. This is all in the holy sheets too, your notes, like all that kind of stuff. It's all open, fair game. Make sure you know how to do both. Not 100% sure if I'm going to say solve by method or if I'm just going to say solve. I told you we're going to have to put our foot on the gas. We're trying to get through everything in 2 days. Write the quotient as a simplified complex number, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. Do we remember? What is that called? Conjugate. Every time I take off a sweater, I feel like I can now electrify a person. Like I just got superpowers. If I just multiplied by I, I'd end up with an I over here. I'm not going to accomplish anything. But if I multiply by the conjugate, I'll end up with a squared thing and a squared thing, and the middle term will cancel. That's its whole purpose. I say 2 by 2 is 4, is 12i, is negative 12i, oh no, 6i, sorry. And negative 18i squared is 4 plus 6i minus 6i minus 9i squared. What's I squared now? Negative 1. Keeping it real. So I turn this into plus 9 and this into plus 18. Combine like terms on the top. 4 plus 18 is 22. 6i's minus 12i's is negative 6i. These two cancel. 4 plus 9 is 13. Please separate your real friends from your imaginary friends. Otherwise, you won't have real friends anymore. I know as soon as I started trying to introduce people to Wabajack here, they just started looking at me like I was weird. So I just ignore them, and I feel rude all day. But we good? Okay. Vertex, domain, and range. On your test, this might be more like, hey, graph it. Tell me the vertex, domain, and range. The axis of symmetry, x is negative b over 2a. The vertex, axis symmetry always goes through the vertex. And if I know the x part of the vertex, I'll plug it into the equation. So function of that. I know this the symbols for it might look a little sketchy, but it just means, hey, plug it in. So negative b over 2a I get a number. I plug that number in. getting 9 times a negative 2 is a negative 18. Negative 12 and negative 3 is 36 minus 7. So I'll get 18 minus 7 is 11. Is this a happy parabola or a sad parabola? Got a negative out front. So that's actually all you need to know to answer this question. I'm saying the vertex at negative 311 and a sad parabola so I got its vertex, domain. Remember the commandments of domain. It's not about what is allowed, it's about what's not allowed. Insert commentary on modern global religions here. You have an equation. Does it have x on a denominator? So I will never divide by 0, breaking the first commandment of domain. Do I have a radical in there? I will never break the second commandment of domain, which is no even roots of negatives. Do I have a logarithm in there? No. So I will never break the third commandment of domain, which says, thou shalt not take log of non-positive. So since I won't break any of the commandments of domain, my domain is all real numbers. Everybody's allowed to that party. The range, on the other hand, remember that domain is x's, range is y's. The y's are always going to be below that vertex. So y is less than or equal to 11. Never going to go above that. In fact, if you stick a 12 right here and try to solve it, you get imaginary solutions. That's what happens, because it's not possible. Or wait, we still got you. Vertical motion model. Typically, it's going to be time and height. It might be horizontal distance and vertical distance, but this specifically is called the vertical motion model. It's on a holy sheet. We ran across a couple of these. When the time is 0, my starting height is here, also the y-intercept. My vertex is going to be a time at which it hits its maximum height. So this is a time when what? When it hits the ground, when the height is 0. When it lands. The vertical motion model will always be h of t is negative 16t squared, because gravity is always constant, plus your initial velocity, time, plus your initial height. So this is specifically saying it's going to start 6 feet off the ground, it's going to take off at 61 feet per second. That's just what it means. What is the highest the arrow will reach? They're asking me for a vertex. How about we go back to our old Graphitron. Y'all remember how to use these to find a vertex? Ouch. Especially if you're taking ACT anytime soon. It's a handy one to know. Go to y equals. Dump in your stuff. Negative 16, I'll call it x squared since I don't have a TT, plus 61x plus 6. I'm going to take my stat plots off because I was doing stuff with pre-calc. Was it pre-calc? Or was it? No, that was you guys because we were just doing our one variable stats. Anyway, I'll zoom back to the standard grid and just see what I can see. Not a whole lot. It's not tall enough. Go to my window, make it bigger. I don't know, make it 100 feet tall. It's probably going to be enough. Hey, there we go. I just want to see it. How do I find that vertex again? Right above trace is calculate. Remember, there's two calculates on here. Stat calculate finds stuff from your table. Second calculate finds stuff on your screen, on the graph. And I'm going to find a maximum. As long as Blinky is on the left and Blinky is on the right. Now I can physically move it over there. Or I can just type a number. I can just hit 5. As long as those two arrows are pointing in at each other. It's going to ask you for a guess. That's completely unnecessary. And there we go. I have to remember what this means, though. If the vertex is at about 1.906, about 64.141, what does that mean?
1.9 seconds.
There you go. After about 1.9 seconds, right? X-axis is time, Y-axis is height. Also, this rocket, or whatever it is, isn't actually shooting in an arc. It's shooting up and coming back down. But as it nears the top of its flight, it's going to slow down because gravity's pulling on it. And then it's going to accelerate as it comes down. That's why it has a sharper curve on either end. Oh, so they're going to do it again. Remember graphing these? Now, to graph parabola, a couple of ways. Option A, go and do that whole negative b over 2a business. Find your axis symmetry, plug it in, get your vertex. Once you got your vertex, you remember perfect square steps? 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. And then if there's an a value there, you multiply those. If that's a 2x, it's going to be over 1 down 2. Over 2 down not 4, 8. Over 3 down not 9, 18. Option 2 says dump it in your calculator and get points. Ay. I can also use that to find my vertex. So, just looking at these two, I'm going to have a negative parabola. I'm going to have a positive parabola. This says shade under it. This says shade above it. The question is, do they overlap like this? Do they never touch? Do they do this? Not 100% sure. But I do know that's out. Actually, I don't know that. So they could have been like this. Okay, I know this one's out because they go in opposite directions. Oh, they both shade inside the U's. So that one's out. And that one's out. So I'm going to use my little trickery here and say if I put in a 0, that's my y-intercept and that's my y-intercept. So one of them is going to have a y-intercept of -2. The other is going to have one of 6. Oh, wait. They both do. Grr. Looks like you actually have to graph them, right?
But the one with -2, the y is going up.
Oh. The one that says +6 should be shading below. Shading below. Which is why it makes a really good multiple choice question, not so much a go do this question, because then it takes longer. Yeah, we'll just get as far as we can get. Keep going tomorrow. Remainder theorem. Remember synthetic division? Oh, God. Everything on this page about polynomials. You better know it if you're coming on up. Remainder theorem says, if I do synthetic division, which is use all of these coefficients, and evaluate by putting a -3 in there. You remember what comes next? Drop it. It's a little hot. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. I'll say -3 by 3 is a -9. Put them together, I got -12. -3 by -12 is 36. Put them together, I got 38. -3 by 38 is a -90, 24, -114. Put them together, I got -113. What? What'd I do? What?
3, -3, 2.
Oh, I just plain wrote the wrong number in there. Okay. Oops. Yeah, you're supposed to add them. See, now I'm all flummoxed. If that ain't right, I quit. Are we there this time? Okay. If this is a 0 of that polynomial, what should happen? I get 0. It's a 0 of, because it goes in evenly. It's a factor of. So what this means is if I had actually done p of -3, if I had done 3 by thing squared cubed, minus 2 by thing squared plus 2 by thing plus 1. If I had actually put a negative 3 in there, I would have gotten this. But this was actually quicker if I didn't screw up a bunch. Factoring when it's in quadratic form. So it looks like a quadratic, it talks like a quadratic, but it turns out it's not a quadratic. If I ever have a squared plus, well, hold on, a u squared plus b u plus c is 0. The catch is that this degree has to be half of that degree and then a constant. That's what quadratic form is. I can factor this just like a normal quadratic. Factors of 16 that add up to negative 10. Going to be negative 8 and negative 2. The difference is because it's not a quadratic, it's a quartic. Those are actually x squareds. I am not done. These are both difference of squares. X plus, x minus. X plus, x minus. Square root of 8 is 2 root of 2. Make sure you simplify it correctly. Square root of 2 is just square root of 2. Now, yes, you could set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0, square root, remember, plus or minus. That works as well. But since it said factor, I'm going to take it all the way. Okay. Oh, we did pretty good. Considering that chapter 11 went so fast for us, since we did really good with 7, I assume that tomorrow 7 and 11 are going to go pretty smooth. So being 2 off of halfway is actually pretty good. So tomorrow we'll hit the second half. Y'all, if you got questions on any of this, if any of the, everything that we did so far makes up like 80% of the ACT. It also makes up a good portion of your final. So if something's fuzzy, ask questions. Remind is a thing.